Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the, oh my gosh, I'm all prepared. I'm full of energy, but somehow I'm saying good morning to the East Coast and good afternoon to the West Coast. I mean, good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast with me. I think I'm just in a good mood and have lots of energy because it's a nice day out there. I'm prepared for the training. That always puts me in a good mood. So let's go ahead and get started. I just want to make sure I got my ducks in a row here. Great to see people chatting in the comments. Definitely make sure you put in 2 or 3 words that just talk about your core competency. Maybe throw in your city and state where you're coming from so others can see. But I do like to start with, you're right, Kathy, take 2. I do like to start with a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time as a way to say thank you for doing that. And my tip of the day is to think win-win. Stephen Covey wrote this book, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. If you haven't got it, get it. I would encourage you to get the audio. You can see I've got all my tabs, the habits all numbered through. So when I'm looking for ones, and I really want to dive in again, I go into it. But I read that every single year. And think win-win is this idea of mutual benefit with whoever you're talking with, working, et cetera. It could be in your personal life, professional life. But the idea is there's win-win, right? And there's lose-lose at the other end. So nobody wins over there and everybody wins here. And in between, there are the worst kind, which are win-lose or lose-win. And you certainly don't want it where you're winning and somebody else is losing. But it's equally bad to lose and let somebody else win, because then they're not really winning if you're not winning. It's not a good relationship. And so as we go into talking about capability briefings today, I wanted to pull that habit up and mention it as a tip of the day, as a way to say when we're going into a meeting, it should not be lose-win. And I'll refer to that as we go along. It should be win-win. You should expect to get a win out of that meeting, that capability briefings meeting that you have. And so should the other person, the government, or if you're meeting with industry partners, et cetera. So that's a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate that. I appreciate the people in the chat coming with the energy and the smiles. Even though I can't really see it, I see it in words, so it's great. All right, let's go into the formal part of the training. Capability briefings have been around for decades. I've been around for decades, but capability briefings have been around longer than I've been in government contracting. It's a way of having meetings with the government that's just been there forever. But as the title implies, it's unbalanced in the authority within a meeting in the favor of the other person, especially if you've been around a long time. What tends to happen is we go in and we feel like we got our hat in a hand or something. We're waiting to see what happens. And all the authority is in that other person's hands. And it shouldn't be. Win-win, like I just mentioned a minute ago, that balances out the authority when everybody's thinking win-win. We want everybody to win. We don't want anybody to get over on the other person. The new way of doing capabilities briefings, is to create balance. And you do that through mutual respect and a willingness to talk or to work together, a willingness to achieve that win-win state that I'm talking about. Capability briefings are a chance, the whole point of them, it's a chance to introduce your company to the other party, right? And to have a discussion. The goal is not to inform them. You're not just trying to throw features at them. And when we describe our company, we say this thing and that thing, like we're ISO and we're woman-owned small business or whatever. All those things are features of your company. And when we're saying all that, we're informing. So you can communicate that for sure. But our goal is not to inform. Our goal is to get them to pause for a second, to spark their interest and get them to say, tell me more, right? That's what I want them to say to you when you go into a capabilities briefing. So let's dive into how we're going to talk about how to give capabilities briefings to the federal buyers and to large primes and small businesses. When you're out there talking to other people and doing that first meeting, it's generally a capabilities briefing meeting. And so I'm going to break it down into 3 main sections for today's training. I want to talk about what are capabilities briefings. Then I'm going to talk about the framework of a capabilities briefing deck. I have a whole bunch of separate trainings on preparing capabilities briefing deck where I walk through every single slide and kind of show you how to do that. I have a newsletter article that Gus or Cecilia on my team, if they're out there and they can put that link to the newsletter article, or really anybody who's familiar with it, if you put it out, that's a great one because it's got great guidance. Plus, it's got the template deck that I share. But that's the framework of the capabilities briefing deck. And then the last thing I want to wrap up with is, how do you go in and have these great capability briefings meetings or successful meetings, right? So I'm going to give you a framework for the meeting to think about as you're heading into meetings. And I'm really excited because in today's training, I know I have at least 3 or 4 people who have reached out to me and said, oh, this training's perfect. I have a meeting in the end of June that I'm trying to prepare for. And so this is perfect. I want you to think about not just the deck, but also the framework of the meeting and how you can guide yourself through that meeting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for you in your overall business success, but also in the capabilities briefing meetings you have, is that repeatable, predictable success. The other thing that's great about this training is that it's an opportunity for you to network, build your network, and network with others. Sometimes you have to go to conferences to do that kind of networking. Well, I make this happen every single day for you. So in the chat, if you see people that you know, say hi. If you see new people, say, hey, welcome to the training. If you haven't subscribed to the GovCon Chambers newsletter, my newsletter is Government Contracting Success. We have a ton of great information out there. Pretty excited. We just passed 17,000 users yesterday on Juneteenth. So I forgot to say happy Juneteenth yesterday, but why one day? Let's celebrate for a week. And the last thing is over 150 people, I think, registered for today's training. I appreciate when people do that. It's a simple thank you to me and my team. But also when LinkedIn sees that, they put the word out to more government contracting, small businesses, buyers, consultants, et cetera, even large primes. And so they come in and our network and our community continues to grow. Your network and your community continue to grow. Okay, let's dive into what are capabilities briefings. First off, by the way, so I have a ton of experience and I communicate what I like to talk about in my way. There's a lot of ways for people to think about it. And so this is my way. This is the way, but it's definitely my way, right? And so when I talk about capabilities briefings, sometimes I'm very direct about my opinions on certain things. And so capabilities briefings, the way that they're still kind of talked about, that's an old school way of talking to buyers. Even from the buyer's perspective, they're still encouraging small businesses to come in and do this capabilities briefings. They're really seeing it as a win-lose, where the government is winning by just hearing this stuff or something. They're not thinking about it in a bigger way. But from a small business perspective, the reason I say this is an old school way of talking to buyers is we kind of go in there with our hat in our hand. We're hoping that something will result. We can present our company's information on several slides, and then you will tell us where we fit and we can make millions of dollars, et cetera. And that's just not how it works, right? That's a very win-lose or even potentially lose-lose way of looking at a meeting where you're going in and there's nothing really there. I remember sitting in a meeting once watching another company do the capabilities briefing. It was the most spectacular, eye-opening thing for me. And it was since I had started the chamber. So it was like 2019, I think. It might have been 2018, 2019. But I had set up this meeting with a defense agency. And because I teach people to show up to meetings early, et cetera, I was like 30 minutes early. And I was 45 minutes early. And I got stuck in this gate closure because of terrorist alerts, et cetera. And so we were all stuck there for 30 minutes. So by the time we got through, I was still 15 minutes early, right? I had brought work so that I could work on it. I knew that I was going to, run into some delay. Anyways, long story short, I got there and they came down and got me. And I noticed that there were these other people over there at the security check-in lines at the building. And when the person came and got us, they came up and said to me, it's like, Neil, do you mind if we have our meeting with this other company? Because they were supposed to be in, but they got caught at the gate. And that was a massive lesson to me. It's like, show up early. Otherwise, you're immediately late. But no, I said, fine. We went in and they used up all of my time. I didn't even get to really talk about what I wanted to, which is overall business, community, et cetera. But I was able to watch them and they just pulled out their deck and they started sharing it. I'm like, oh my God, that's like so old school. It's what all of us keep doing. Even me in my last company, I would go in and do something very similar to senior DoD leaders. And when I looked back, I was like, that is not the way it should be going. And then you could tell that they really didn't know a lot about the agency they were talking to beyond the highest level stuff. But they had done minimal research in preparation of this meeting. I think they were hoping the person they were meeting with was going to tell them everything they needed to know. So the new approach to capabilities briefings is to go in there with this whole idea, right? Again, Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Habit 4, hoping it's habit 4. Yeah, think win-win. And the idea is when you go into a capabilities briefing, it's about getting to know each other. It's not about presenting, right? Capabilities briefing means I'm coming in to present my capabilities, but that's not really what it's about. It's about getting to know each other. I want you to tell me about you, and I will tell you about me. Just happens to be, I'm going to use 6 slides or something to communicate that, but it really is us just telling each other what's going on. The idea is you want to balance that. That's why I'm saying getting to know each other. You want to balance that inequality of authority, right? So we call this authority, shifting the authority in your favor. I definitely like to shift authority in your favor, but that's a separate training. But when you come in and you're thinking about, hey, I want to be on equal ground, then it is really going in and making sure the other person and you know that this meeting is about us getting to know each other. It's not about you getting to know me and my product, because that's not a relationship. You could have just sent them a flyer and you'd be done with it. And then the last thing is the research that you do really enables or leads to discussions you can have with the buyer that you're meeting with, the federal buyer. And I put here an example of DLA and Gus. For those of you who don't know it, the 2 biggest people who helped me on the chamber in these trainings in particular is Cecilia. So that's my sister. She's been with me since 2018, giving back to the GovCon world, often free. But and then Gus Phelps is in here, and he's my partner as well, and Cecilia is in there. And but I met Gus a long time ago, and he and I had been talking about capability briefing decks. He was going to go into DLA and talk to them, and so I helped soundboard with him and prep him before he went in. And one of the things I talked about was research, and so he really dug into that thing, and he had found these different documents. It was bringing them back to me. I said, well, just read them and see if you find anything interesting. Long story short, some of the things we were trying to ask in DLA that we just couldn't find anywhere happened to come up in this document. So when he had a meeting and he was in there talking in the meeting, within the first 10 minutes, he brought up this document. He just mentioned the document and said, hey, I was reading the DLA blah, blah, blah. And I noticed in there it had this office and it was breaking down the components of that office. Can you help me get a meeting with them or maybe get some of the strategic documents they might have? The other person wasn't even aware of the document that Gus was referencing. And he was instantly shifting the authority so that now they're having a mutual conversation, like mutual respect. That person was no longer looking at Gus like he was doing Gus a favor. Now he was looking at Gus like he was equal, going, oh, I can learn from Gus and I can help Gus. And so it led great, but research leads to an approach within a capabilities briefing. So it's not one-sided. Capability briefings are 2-sided. Okay, so let's talk about the framework of a capabilities briefing deck. I do have a whole slide deck template. If you put into the chat, CB rocks, put CB rocks in there. And if you put that in, I will let you know where the capability briefing deck is. For those of you who want to get ahead, I think it's in our newsletter already, so you can just go over there. But if you put it in, I'll make sure, or Gus or Cecilia or I will make sure that you know where to find a capability briefing deck. By the way, if you come like months and months after I do this training, please just go look in the newsletter because it's over there. All right, so why use a framework? The first thing I just want you to understand is that when you think about a capabilities briefing deck and it has slides, those slides make up the framework of that deck. And so you're guiding somebody through the journey you want to take them. I'm starting with this slide on purpose because I want you to see something. Then I'm going to move to the next slide. Really quick example is when I brief federal agencies, I always start with my capabilities. I'm like, hey, here's what I can do, and this is our expertise, et cetera. I'm starting them with that. Contrast that with when I talk to a large business, I often start with large businesses. This is a little bit about our company, how strong we are. We have ISO certifications. We're CMMI compliant or certified or something. some of these things that just show that, oh, this is a strong company. And the reason I'm saying that, it goes into this framework. You want to communicate with your briefing deck. First off, what do we do? Or, one of three bullets, you can change them any way you want, right? But the first thing is, what do we do? This is our core competency. And so think a high level keyword and some subordinate keywords. For example, I did SharePoint services, and those SharePoint services included migration, app development, and administration. So we took care of the servers, we migrated or upgraded to new versions, and we created applications that people could use. This is what we do. That's what you're communicating. It needs to be so quick and easy. It does not need to be in font that is so small that you can tell them every single thing that's out there. When you're doing a capability briefing deck, the smallest point font you want really should be 28. That should be the lowest size you have. These bullets here, I don't know what they are, like 24 or 28, but they're definitely not smaller than 24. But 28 is what you're looking for. Anything lower than that, you're putting too many words on, and you're working too hard to try to convince them or inform them. Compared to, they should be able to see it and go, oh, that's not us, or it is us, right? So the first bullet and the first slide you want, or one main slide, is what do we do? The second one, very important, is who's paid us. Now, if you don't have anybody who's paid you, you should not be talking to a federal agency. You should be talking to a small business doing 5 million, 10 million and less. When you talk to a company doing $10 million or less, they remember what it was like to be you. You can get in there, be part of their team, begin to get experience, come back. And when they say who's paid us, you can say company ABC as we supported HUD or the Army, right? I am actively trying to discourage you, if you don't have any past performance, from going to the government. It's where we all knock our heads, and then we realize, oh, we should be getting subcontracts, which get us experience, which allow us to get bigger and bigger contracts. That was a sidebar there. But you want to communicate who's paid us, because now you're borrowing the trust that people have in that customer. For example, if somebody looks on my slide for past performance or who's paid us, they will see Air Force, they will see Army, they'll see Treasury, they'll see Homeland Security, they will see Booz Allen, they will see Leidos, right? They will see these organizations and go, well, if they trusted you, I sure can trust you long enough to get to the end of the slide or end of the meeting, right? They begin to have trust in you that's borrowed from the people who have already paid you. That's why it's really important to put in who's paid us. And by the way, don't put 1,000 people who have paid you. Pick the top 10 at most. Really, you should be able to win them with 5 or 6 examples. If you put in Army and Air Force and DHS, what else could I put on there that will convince you that people trust us, right? And then the third bullet in the framework is you're communicating how we ensure delivery. And this is the one I mentioned, is really the one I start with large firms. If I'm briefing large firms, here is where I sit there and talk about we have a 97% retention rate. We have these certifications. We're ISO certified. Some of the companies I've supported, they put in specific back office tools that they have that demonstrate that they're no longer on Excel or Quicken or something, whatever that is, but they're on these more mature accounting tools. We have this line of credit available to us. This is our staffing approach, and we have the ability to reach back. What you're doing is communicating, especially to a large, that look, if you give us the work, we can last 60 or 90 days while you do whatever it is you do, and we're never going to fold on you. Plus, we're constantly certifying our people and making sure they're good to go. And so that shows you we know what we're doing and we're certified in what we're doing. And so bullet 3 there is how we ensure delivery. Your slide deck, the framework should be communicating these 3 things: what we do, who's paid us, and how we ensure delivery, how we minimize the risk and ensure delivery. So that's the framework. And if I have enough time, I'll show you an example of this, of a very basic template that you can follow, make it your own, but it's a template. But the second thing I want you to pay attention to when you're thinking about your capability briefing deck and you're preparing it is make sure that you're showing them right from the very start that you're on their team. An easy way to do that is on the title page, put their logo. So I used to love putting Air Force's logo or Booz Allen, but you put these things on, your logo and their logo, and they're subliminally, they're thinking, oh, we're working together. We already got logos on a slide. That must mean we're working together. It's just a subliminal nod to the relationship I want. right? I want to be working with you. I see us working together. This is the first document we've ever created together, right? One with your logo. Use their language. When I talk about that, I mean go into their strategic plans and see how they talk about certain things. Today, I just shared out an Air Force. It's a great document you should go look at, but it's an Air Force contracting strategic plan, how they're doing contracting and how they're strategically looking at competing with our adversaries going forward. And this is a recent document in the last year by the head of contracting for the Department of Air Force. And when I look in there, I can see how they're communicating. And so if I did acquisition support and contract support, et cetera, I could look in there and I could see their lines of effort and what's their priorities and how they communicate about their line of effort, LOE, and line of effort, and then the objectives that support each LOE, and then their outcome that they're looking for, that key performance or expectation that they have. And so using their language begins to tie you to them. Even something as simple as, do you go in and say the words digital modernization or digital transformation? Which is it? There is no right answer. There's only their answer. So you want to align with whatever they say, and you just kind of fit it in. So that's using their language. Last one I really like using is graphics. And so in graphics, I'll go into those same documents, for example, and I'll snip something out, put it in, and people will love it. I'm like, well, yeah, of course you love it. It's your graphic, right? But what I'm showing is, look, we align completely to this. And so I'll put a little citation in the caption that says, hey, I got this from your document. But what I'm trying to do is communicate that our approach aligns with your approach. I might crosswalk it or something, but when you use their words and their pictures, they begin to, subliminally, again, feel like you get them. It's like, of course I get you because I did my research before I talk to you. So that's the framework of the capabilities briefing deck. Just remember, it's about what we do, who's paid us, and how we ensure delivery. That's all you're trying to communicate. Okay, before I talk about the meeting and how you rock that, I just want to share some exciting news. We'll be releasing soon a web-based solution that we're putting together. Some people call it a SaaS product. But the whole point of this is to solve the top challenges small business government contractors have. I've been doing this a long time, 6+ years, 7+ years, teaching small businesses, tens of thousands of them. And the challenges we have all come down to three main ones that I want to help you with. First one is getting in the door to meet with federal buyers. Second one is finding teammates who want to work with you. And then the third one is identifying, pursuing, and responding to opportunities that you can win. And so we'll be building that, rolling it out, releasing feature by feature as we come. But I'd love for you to join our wait list at govconinabox.com if you're interested in learning more or learning about it when it comes out, govconinabox.com. Okay, so let's wrap up talking about the framework of a meeting. And what I mean by this is just literally, the agenda of a meeting, how you're going to go through the meeting to be able to get the success you want. When I teach sales, I teach people that you want to have a successful meeting, not a great meeting. It is not sufficient for you to present your deck and for them to love the information you presented and for everybody to be smiles and, oh, it's awesome. High fives all around. That's not sufficient. That's good, but what's sufficient is having a successful meeting. And the only way you have a successful meeting is if you're moving the relationship or the sale forward. So if you're in there talking about specific opportunities or thinking about specific opportunities, it needs to move the sale forward. If you're just trying to strengthen the relationship, it needs to tangibly move the relationship forward. So an example of a relationship moving forward with industry, large prime, could be an NDA. So the first bullet I have here on the framework of a meeting is you need to have an objective. You're going in and doing this capabilities briefing. And there needs to be an objective that's in there. What are you trying to get out of this meeting? This is your measurement of success. I call it sometimes the definition of done. This meeting was done correctly, successfully, when we achieved this result, this objective. So I mentioned with a large prime, it could be I want to get an NDA place or even a small prime or teammate. But if I'm going into an agency, right, I might want to get a copy of a strategic plan. That's an objective. I might want to sit there and get a second meeting scheduled because I know that I need 3 or 4 meetings before I can turn this early relationship into a strategic partnership or strategic relationship, right? And so I might have an objective to get that next meeting scheduled. I just had a meeting this morning, right before I was coming on here. In that meeting, both of us had the same kind of objective to well, our purpose was to talk to each other and see if we wanted to move forward. And if we did, the objective was schedule another meeting. So we already have the meeting scheduled. We didn't say, let's come back and schedule it. We saved time at the end to schedule it. And you should think that same way. Every single meeting you go into must have an objective. That is your measurement of success. And it can be as small as big as you want, but it needs to be a clear thing that you got from that activity. One of my objectives in creating slides is to make sure I highlight both ice and breaker in red. So the second thing I have here, second bullet, is icebreaker. For those of you just listening, I forgot to bold in red the word ice. Anyways, an icebreaker is a way to warm up a meeting, a sales meeting that you're going into, that first meeting, without talking about golf and kids and these unrelated things to the meeting. When you go into a meeting, those first few seconds, first 120 seconds or so, you're chit-chatting about something. Hey, hi, whatever. Well, when you have an icebreaker, that's where you can get past any potential uncomfortable stage to comfortable stage. And what I say is use an icebreaker that is related to that person in the business that you're going to talk about. So if I'm meeting with somebody in the Army to talk about, a contracting officer as an example over in the Army Contracting Command, then I'm going to sit there and talk to them about an icebreaker I might do is, hey, I just saw that you posted something on LinkedIn or you did this podcast. An example is I want to try to meet and get an interview with the Assistant Secretary of the Army for acquisition, or the Air Force for acquisition. So this person who just put out the post that I did today. So when I get in and talk with them, I'm going to sit there and talk about, hey, I saw that post you guys did. I loved it because it really tied industry together with your vision for how contracting can be done better. Oh, yeah, I'm really proud of my team. They did a great job. It's like, cool. So we're talking about what the meeting is going to be about, but in an icebreaker way. Hopefully that makes sense. And then the third bullet I have is agree to a purpose. The purpose is what we're going to talk about. That is different than the objective. The objective is what you are going to get out of the meeting. You don't want to go into a meeting unless you're getting something out of it. Otherwise, what's the point of it? Unless you're having coffee, then do that for fun. But the purpose is, hey, we're going to talk about this. The objective you keep to yourself, and the purpose you say to the other person. So an example is, in today's meeting, what I like to say is, hey, before we get started, can I just say what I think the purpose is of the meeting and just make sure we're in agreement, or we can adjust it, move on? And they're going to go, yeah, sure, absolutely. And I go, perfect. The purpose of the meeting from my perspective today is to share a little bit about my company, hear a little bit about your organization, and then for us to just have a discussion for most of it so that you can ask me questions, I can ask you questions. In fact, I've got my questions written down, but how's that sound? Sounds good, right? And you're giving the person two opportunities. One is to modify the purpose. They're not going to modify it much, but they might say, hey, I'd also like to do this. And then also get them to agree to the journey that you're both about to take in this meeting, in this capabilities briefing. All right, the next thing you're going to do when you're in the meeting is you're going to present your briefing deck. This should take 5 minutes or less, no more. If you're doing anything more than that, you're doing a presentation. You're not having a discussion. Remember, the purpose of these meetings is to have a discussion. I've gone to events where I am a speaker and I'm on stage, I'm presenting. The purpose of that meeting is for me to present. If there's Q&A at the end, great, but it's not to have a discussion. In a meeting, you're not presenting, you're having a discussion, and the capability briefing deck is just designed to get that discussion kicked off, to give the other person an understanding of who you are, who's paid you, and how they can trust you. And the last thing is use a call plan to guide the discussion. You got to watch other training that I have. I have probably 20 to 50 trainings on how to do call plans. But the whole point of a call plan is where you write down your objective, you write down the icebreaker, you write down the purpose, and you write down 10 questions that you can ask throughout. These questions are designed to understand the problem, the pain points, and the goals that they have. No matter which conversation you're having, you can always have that same type of goal for the questions. And so a call plan will guide you through that. I've got all sorts of training on that. All right, so just as we get close to wrapping up time, just reminding you that here's 3 things to pay attention to as you get ready to do your next capabilities briefing deck or intro meeting. Update your deck, make it relevant to the people you're meeting with. You can do a little customization each time, take you 5 minutes, and it'll really make them happy. Use a call plan like I just discussed, and then set their expectations immediately by defining the purpose or communicating the purpose and getting them to agree. Yep, that sounds good. And so my expectations is to have a conversation with you. Hopefully you found that valuable. If you did, put capability briefing or CB rocks into the chat. Also, if you put that in, let me know if you need the template deck, unless somebody's already put it down there. Remember, we've got training again tomorrow, so come back, register for it. Love to have you in. If you need help in the government contracting space and you're doing more than 2 million, especially if you're an 8A as we head into the end of the year, love to be able to support you. Go ahead and check out govconchamber.com and you can learn more about us over there. For all of us, as you go into the capabilities briefing deck, as you go into your day, just remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.